it's not just the scoring, it's the passing, it's the rebounding. The defense was a little bit better. Everything was fitting into what the Warriors needed. And without Steph on the floor, like so many other guys, Kuminga's really struggled. And he has not been able to have the impact on the game that they would hope that he would.
Hello, Nick. How you doing?
Greetings from Oklahoma, guys. How we doing?
Look at you. Look at you, all ready to go in Middle America. So I was driving around last week, and I was listening to you do the hit with the morning guys, and you said something along the lines of, in all my years covering the NBA, as far as the travel schedule, what they've handed to the Warriors here at the start of the season is among the worst you've ever seen. And so that was rattling around in my head. And you know when you go like hug someone and slap them on the back and say hello, but they have a sunburn? And they're like, like that's what this feels like. If this was the hardest start travel-wise to a season, now they're going to get this 6-game road trip where they're going to play the Thunder and the Spurs 3 times in the next 4 nights. Good Lord, Nick.
Uh-oh, Mark.
Yeah, uh-oh.
That's the answer there. And I like the analogy because when you sit there and you know you're not feeling good and then somebody comes up behind you and you're burned, you go, oh, gosh. The Warriors just have to get through this. And it's specific to this trip at the start of what's going on. If they split this trip, guys, that is a good thing. That should be the goal. Get through this trip 3-3, get home, see how things are going, get everybody healthy and feeling good, find your rhythm. This schedule is brutal. It is absolutely the worst one I've ever seen to start a year. But the Warriors aren't playing really well, and you still have to play to win. And I think we all can look back at that Milwaukee-Indianapolis trip and go, oh, that's when it started to slide, and they haven't been the same since. So you get Steph back tonight. You hope that he finds a rhythm quickly. But to your point, Mark, the problem is you go right to San Antonio, you play tomorrow, then you play Friday, then you've got New Orleans, Orlando, Miami. If you can split this trip 3-3 and go back to San Francisco, you should feel pretty good if you're the Warriors and you're a Warriors fan. But as you're looking at the next few days, tomorrow is going to be brutal because it's a back-to-back, although Horford's going to play in that game, so his length should at least help a little bit on Wemby. But you've got to split one of those games in San Antonio to feel good about the second part of the trip. Specific to tonight, though, if you get Steph rolling and you find his rhythm, I think it's going to get Jimmy into the spots that he needs to be, and I think it will rev up the rest of this team that's always seemed to be looking for reasons to get amped about certain games. There aren't much bigger games than when you're playing the defending champs.
We have a saying on this show, Nick, and that is that all roads lead to Kuminga. So let's take another road, shall we? And let's talk about him. What a wonderful start to his season. However, the last few games, it's suddenly gone a little off script, if you will, with Steph out. What have you seen? What's going on with him last few games?
The hardest part, Mark, is that when you watch Kuminga, you see a player that everybody's seen before in the last week or so. He had those moments where you thought, he's really turned the corner. And the scoring was there, but as Kerr said many, many times, I know he told you guys, it's not just the scoring, it's the passing, it's the rebounding. The defense was a little bit better. Everything was fitting into what the Warriors needed. And without Steph on the floor, like so many other guys, Kuminga's really struggled. And he has not been able to have the impact on the game that they would hope that he would. So you'd think with Steph back, it would allow everybody to take a deep breath, but especially Kuminga because he has not played well the last few games. This is the problem with Kuminga, though, guys, on a whole. If you're a Kuminga fan and you're saying, all right, the Warriors should give him a bunch of money after the season and they should make all of these things happen and he should be a future piece of this team, then you can't have the dramatic step down that we've seen over the last week. You need some level of consistency. It's why he was so good those first couple weeks and everybody was singing his praises and saying, this is the player that he can be. I thought, guys, in the last few days, the most telling comment made by anybody was Draymond in Denver the other night, and he's talking about how we believe in Kuminga. We know he can be better than what he's shown recently, but what he really said was this is what he wanted. Kuminga wanted more minutes. He wanted more responsibility. He's getting it, and at least in these last few games, he hasn't responded the way they want. So anybody can go through a tough stretch. It happens to the best players in the game. But if you're Kuminga and you started off so strong, it is jarring to have this week where Steph goes off the floor and everything kind of falls apart for a second.
And keeping that in mind, do you think that it's risky if the Warriors decide to bring Kuminga off the bench and maybe go with Moses Moody to start games? Is he in a spot where that might disrupt the good start to his season?
I think so, because Dibs, when you look at Kuminga, this is a player, at least to start the year, that was playing on a lot of confidence. He knew and felt like he belonged. The contract situation was what it was. It was over. He came in, he was playing well. Okay, here we go. And then, boom, it kind of reality hit again in the last week. So if you start messing with that, he's still 23 years old. He's still trying to get that big deal in his future. If that doesn't happen, I think there are more questions that come out. But if you're Kuminga and you started so strong, I'm sure all those guys, and Jimmy comes to mind specifically, are saying, hey, look, just relax. We know you can play. We know what you can do. You just have to show it again. And the problem for Kuminga is when he's not hitting those shots, how does the defense look? I know he had a nice rebounding night the other night, but is he fitting into the rest of the categories where they need him to be successful? That hasn't always been the case in these last few games. But, Dibs, if you take him out of the starting lineup, but I don't think we're there having that conversation yet. But if in a week from now on this trip he continues to struggle, I think that could be a real question. And I think that question opens up a lot more questions that they'd rather not face right now.
Nick Friedell with us. Hey, can we listen to some Steve Kerr together? I want to play something that he said getting ready for this road trip and get your reaction, kind of a buy or sell on the thought that he's talking about. Here's Steve Kerr.
We're not playing very well, clearly. We had a great fourth quarter, end of third, and then fourth quarter, the ball started moving. There was some flow, but overall, we haven't played real well. But I'm very confident in this team. It's going to be a tough trip. As you mentioned, 2 back-to-backs. We kind of felt like, getting through this early part of the schedule in one piece, and, if we're healthy and, win our share of games, that it sets up the rest of the season well for us. So obviously we gave a couple games away, but all in all, we're pretty healthy, and we're going to get there. I can picture, the team. I can see what kind of team we're going to be, but we don't really have our identity yet.
I can picture the kind of team that we're going to be, but we're just not there yet. What do you picture with this team, Nick?
Mark, the only thing, if you're a Warriors fan, that you need to picture and hope for, and this is where I have to remind myself of the same thing too as they start this trip. It all comes down to April. Are they healthy in April? That really, to me, is the single biggest question. I know there is so much interest around this group, and there are way too many times already early. And we go back to that Milwaukee, Indianapolis roadie where they didn't look good and they were just going through the motions and they got beat twice. Everybody has got to keep the perspective in mind. If you are healthy going into April, you have a chance. If you are not healthy in April, then none of this other stuff matters. So that's why I understand what Kerr is saying. He said he's been consistent with this, guys. That you need 20 games. You got to figure out your rotations. Pods has been up and down. Moody has had some really good games and some games where he's kind of disappeared. We've hit on Kuminga. Will Richard continues to the momentum is building for him to be a rotational piece down the line. But I understand the greater point that Kerr was trying to make in that there are lots of different things that happen over the course of a season. What I would say personally, in my own opinion, watching this team is you can only go through the motions so much, but the key over anything else is, are you healthy when the games matter the most?